Good to go?
Yeah, we can hop in. We can talk jazz. I brought my Wynton Kelly trio. I
Ooh,
brought
nice.
the Coltrane Classic Quartet
I love
box
it.
that got me through grad school. We can talk about the Mingus show I saw recently, or we can talk about branding and brand science and all that crap.
Let's hit all of it. So let's begin. Let's just hit the ground running. Ethan, it's wonderful to meet you. Thank you for taking a minute out.
You too, Joe.
So let's begin our journey into your good work by this. COVID 5 years ago was really kind of gaining steam. How did you ultimately make it through that time period, and how has it influenced the way that you live life today?
COVID. Oh wow. Well, it's done a couple big things. One of them is I have been ramping up my own company, which I call Applied Brand Science. I used to be in advertising, spent 15 years doing that, and realized a lot of great ideas die not because they're bad ideas, but because we all disagree about how advertising and marketing even work.
Yeah.
You know, the fundamental principles of what makes a good ad, we don't agree. And so people are just flying by the seat of their pants. There's no sense of rules or laws or principles aside from, sex sells. That's a classic. But even that gets poo-pooed, and even that doesn't have good, guardrails around it. So anyway, I'm kind of a scientist, but I'm also creative. And so the sciencey side of me said, well, what's the science of branding? And when I dug in and found some, I was like, this is really helpful. This is really useful. And if I can swim upstream from the arguments about the ad campaigns to talk about how advertising even works, how shoppers even shop, then we can all agree on how the world works and make some good work together.
What did you want to be when you were a kid? What was your dream life?
Oh man, I was going to be on Broadway, either on stage or backstage, writing or performing.
So take me back to your childhood. Where were you born and raised? What were the foundational seeds that were planted to evolve into who you are?
Philly. Grew up downtown, Center City, Philly. Pretty middle class life, very diverse neighborhood downtown. Uh, Got away into the woods in Maine each summer to do some camping and hiking. But from an early age, I was always into music, musicals, theater. We were a big theater family, so I saw a lot of stuff on Broadway as well as in Philly. And I started getting into it in elementary school, middle school, and high school, and wrote musicals and was performing in musicals, and dabbled in a lot of different instruments, but was kind of a dilettante player and never got serious because I was also interested in things like science. And my physics teacher in high school actually told my parents, "This kid's got something. This kid's got. He should be a scientist." So I'm kind of a mess, a polyglot, but a mess.
You got the right and left brain going. That's fine. It just
Yeah,
adds to the enrichment of living, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
So we kind of talked a little bit up front. I have the jazz radio show with Neon Jazz. I have
Yep.
famous interviews, and you were kind of showing me some music. So I want to ask you, what was the first live jazz show you saw that absolutely blew your top?
Oh, first live jazz show would probably be Joshua Redman
Wow.
in Albuquerque. I was in grad school. My wife and I were getting into jazz, and he was on fire back then. So this was probably late 90s. And I feel like Ron Miles might have been in the group. Oh, who was on drums? He was also um, with Trixie Whitley in her band.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name right now.
it'll
It's
come to
Brian
me.
Blade. Brian
Oh,
Blade.
Brian Blade. Wow.
So Joshua Redman and Brian Blade. It was an incredible show. Blew
Man, I
my
can imagine.
brains out.
Yeah, the great Ron Miles, I interviewed him a few times, which he was from Denver. And
Yes.
unfortunately, he left us early.
Yep.
What a beautiful soul. Just a tender, wonderful human.
Amazing. I never got to hang out with him or talk with him, but I did get to see him in an 80-person venue in Albuquerque, which was blissful.
Yeah.
Blissful.
So
Yeah.
the guy that led me to jazz is one of my best friends of all time. His name's John Sweetwood, and I
Mm.
remember when he kind of led me to Monk and Miles and all of that. He always told me a story about we went to high school together. We were separated by a few years, but there was an assistant principal that I wasn't really close to, but he was, and he told him about Joshua Redman. He was like he was new. He was like, you got to listen to this guy. This guy's blowing the doors down because I believe his uncle was Dewey, right? He
That
came from
sounds right.
yeah, came from some jazz DNA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And on my science side, heritability is a real deal.
Yeah,
Uh, like genetics are real, and musicians are often children of musicians. I mean, another great artist I love is Rufus Wainwright, and he's a child of famous musicians as
that's
well.
right.
You know,
And it was a
so
little bit tumultuous. It was London Wainwright the third, I believe, was his dad.
yep, yep. And Kate McGargle, I think, is his mom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love him. I've kind of lost track with his career, but all of his stuff is just a level of passion that's unreal.
Oh, it's beautiful. And he's got this kind of operatic but nasally voice, which is such a great combo.
Yeah,
And he sings the longest notes in pop.
yeah,
Like he holds his breath control is amazing. And when I saw him here in Boulder, which is a
yeah,
mile high,
yeah,
he was bitching about the altitude. He couldn't hold his notes. It was hilarious. But I love his stuff. It's so Tin Pan Alley. It's got such a pastiche of pop sensibility, of singer-songwriter, soul and heart, and then this very much kind of Broadway tin pan musicality to it. It's
yeah.
great.
It is. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, who's been a hero for you? Who's been an inspiration for you to do all of these things in your life?
Oh man. Well, when I was young, I got to say Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah,
I got so into Jesus Christ music, Jesus Christ Superstar when I was young. And just his amount of creativity and unabashed mashing up of his kind of music and his kind of style, and then the showmanship of it, that was super fun and inspired me. Another big inspiration was my camp director from Maine. I mentioned I went up to Maine a lot to this tiny boys camp, and Harry Price the fourth was a director, a mentor, and ultimately a friend. And he inspired me a lot because every time you were with him, you felt like the most important person in the room
yeah,
because he just gave you his attention. He gave you his thoughtfulness and his care. And he had so much passion and joy to, joie de vivre, just love of life and wanting people to embrace it and take it. So those are a couple big inspirations for me.
What's one of the most groundbreaking live performances, Broadway performances you ever witnessed in your life?
Oh man. I I gotta say, well, on the flip side, I tried to go back into the catalog and I saw like Riverboat once,
Yeah,
and my wife and I didn't last past the intermission. It was from a different era, a different time, and
yeah.
we just couldn't. But I gotta say, Hamilton blew my mind.
Okay.
Hamilton was really different, and I've seen a lot of musicals. I mean, from a personal perspective and the storytelling and the emotion, a chorus line, no doubt, 100%, still my favorite. So personal, so aching, so awesome. Sondheim just wrote these raw stories and put them on stage. But Hamilton, Hamilton has something like 3 times the number of words of the average musical.
Wow.
So just in raw sonic and creative energy, it just blasts you in the face like a sandblaster. And if you don't know the libretto before you go in, you're you know trying to keep up with it.
Yeah,
And then on top of the songs and the stories and the rat-tat-tat machine gun fire of the words, the music is inventive and the cast never stop moving.
yeah,
The whole time the dancers are dancing, it brings this whole music video sensibility to Broadway, which, if you go to most Broadway shows, there are a lot of set pieces. It's one or two people going from their mark, and then they sing a couple verses, and then they walk to another mark, and they sing a verse, and they walk to another mark, and they sing. And this is just a constant whirling dervish of spectacle. It's super great.
absolutely. So if you could meet anybody that you've seen in Broadway on stage, whether they're alive or they're a ghost, and you could spend some time with them, get to know them, understand how they did it, who would it be?
Huh. I might start with someone like Barbara Streisand,
Yeah,
like really classic, huge, and creating a career, of course, as a woman in a time when, actresses we're still second fiddle to everything else to men. And Barbara would be amazing to start with. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd start there.
So, what is it that gets you up every day to do this work that you do? What is it that motivates you, gets you up, and to help you continue to evolve as a human being?
So I did this thing with Jackie Ensinger, who is a performance and career coach here in Boulder, and it's called Your Print Type. And as far as I know, it's kind of based on the Enneagram. And whether or not it's scientific, it's helpful because it gives you introspection. And the two things that popped for me were I am a joy seeker, a joy creator, and then I'm a helper.
Yeah.
And those two elements, those are kind of my spikes around the circle, come together in terms of being performative and loving being on stage and loving making people laugh. But as a helper, I don't just want to perform. I want to make sure it's a great experience for you. There's a hospitality angle to it, that it's useful. So I really like the fact that nowadays I get to combine a lot of my more performative tendencies. You know, I did a little improv. Like I said, I did a lot of theater and musical theater earlier. And now I get to combine that with this brand science stuff and branding strategy stuff, which is really helpful. So it's a real combination of sizzle and steak. And ultimately, I get to have fun. I help you have fun, but the fun is also functional because sometimes there's some medicine, and the sugar does help the medicine go down.
Certainly. So,
Yeah.
how do the gears that grind in your head that are right brain and left brain, how do those echo and reverberate to make you who you are and to feed off each other?
Yeah, that's I don't know how. It just is. It is what it is. It's like the theater business that Jeffrey Rush seen in Shakespeare in Love. He's like, I'm not sure. It's a mystery, but it just works out. That's what theater is. And I'm not sure how my brain works. I doubt, Joe, you really know exactly how your brain works or
Right.
why it works that way, but it works. And so I am at this interesting nexus, this interesting intersection between creative and science, between the artistic side of branding and marketing and the academic and analytical side of it. So I can translate, but I can also see the intersection. Like you need the laws. You need to understand the laws of physics to make a plane fly. But the laws of physics don't help you make a plane that makes people go whoa when it goes by.
Yeah.
You need something else there. You need magic. You need alchemy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, in the science of branding, you can needle in and find all these specifics that will lead to something that will change and be successful. I kind of think about Moneyball, Billy Bean, the idea of getting into the kind of the nuts and bolts of baseball. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the consumer, we come from a visceral standpoint. There's a level of us that just feels something wash over us and it makes sense. Kind of the
Yep.
mystery of Shakespeare. So ultimately, what's the brand out there that exists that has always allured you, that made you think they got it, they understand it?
Well, the big obvious ones are just so big and obvious, and I'll just get them out of the way, which is of course stuff like Nike and Apple.
Yeah,
They get it, and partly because they're open to the magic, and partly because they commit to the bit, like they play the play, right? They walk the talk, and you hear so many brands saying, "I want to be the Apple of medical supplies."
yeah,
Well, not unless you're going to craft a patented glass spiral staircase in your headquarters, which Apple has in their flagship store in New York City.
yeah,
Like you gotta be able to walk the talk. Um, there are a lot of small brands which are doing some really fun and cool stuff, and they're being themselves, which I love. Um, there's a deck paint or a deck varnish from I don't know if it's the UK or Australia. I'm so embarrassed, but their thing is, 4 hour deck varnish does what it says on the tin, you know, or or 2 hour paint does what it says. And they're just unabashedly, yep, we're a boring product, but we do what we say we do.
yeah,
Another one like that is Buckley's cough syrup from Canada.
yeah.
And Buckley's says, you'll swear at it and buy it. Tastes awful, and that's why it works. But like this notion of just being unabashedly who you are is an element that I think is very powerful in brands. And it's true in musicians,
Yeah.
people who are just, I am who I am. And sometimes you find an audience and sometimes you don't, but you're unabashedly who you are. And that works pretty well in brands as well.
So it seems like you've had a pretty adventurous existence. And I'm curious of all of the things that you've done, is there one thing that you've done where you lean back and you're like, wow, I can't believe I did that? Just something
Hmm.
cool that you accomplished.
Um, yeah, there are a couple. One of them, I can't believe I wrote the music and the libretto for a semi-professional children's musical when I was at summer camp the year after I graduated high school. That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I got mono at the same time. So
Yeah.
that was a heady, you know, confluence of a lot of things going on at once. More recently, there's these bigger, longer, slower challenges of life which seem pedestrian or typical, but I'm a dad. And, being a good dad, as one of my friends recently said, it's not about the outcome. It's not about where your kids end up or land. It's whether you showed up and whether when you say, I love you, right? And the kid goes, yeah, dad. Like that's being a good dad. That's winning. And that challenge of really showing up and doing it well is it's so universal and human. So it's not like it's some unique thing. I didn't summit Everest like only, well, nowadays it's pretty common, but it's not rare, but it's still a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You, you might respect this as a runner in high school. The only time I ever got mono was my senior year, and I was 4'11" in high school, and I grew a little by my senior year, but I was still not. That was my sport, running. And I remember I ran so hard to be a part of the varsity five that I got mono. And I didn't
Oh,
realize it till I went to the doctor. And it was right the week before my final race. And I
oh,
was going to be JV and I was hoping to win it. I didn't tell my coach and I still ran the race. And I took a wrong turn. I was in first place and took the wrong turn.
no,
And I finished like
no.
second or third. So one way or another, karma balanced out. I got to do my final race,
Right.
didn't have to sit on the sidelines, but I took that wrong turn because it just was the way it was supposed to work. But yeah, anyway, it
Yeah,
was,
those formative experiences, man,
that's
where
it.
where things are the best and the worst they ever could be. It's crazy.
Yeah, it totally is. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, of all of these loves that you have, you clearly love jazz. So tell me, why do you love jazz?
Oh, jazz is amazing. Jazz is amazing. I used to hate jazz, actually. I thought it was atonal and discordant,
Yep,
which are both kind of true at
sure.
times.
Yeah.
And it was meandering and it was sloppy, which can also be true. But then I discovered two things about jazz. Jazz is incredibly complex and multi-layered, or it can be. And
Hmm.
those layers are so rich, and those wabi-sabi feelings that you get and those atonal complex sounds that you get, they express complex feelings, which is one piece of it. And I love that now. I don't want to hear kind of one note songs, so to speak, that are just too simple and too boring. And then the other piece is the incredible amount of interplay in jazz.
Yeah.
Like I've done improv, and it's very similar in that you're riffing off each other. In improv, people often ask you, or if you do improv, people ask, well, how do you come up with the next thing to say? Well, the best way to come up with something to say is to listen harder,
Yeah.
to listen to the other players and say, what do they need? What does this scene need? What does that actor, what did they put out as a gift for me? And if I don't listen and notice it's a gift, I don't pick it up. So jazz does that, right? When people riff off each other and they're listening and they're bouncing ideas off each other, it's incredible.
It is. So, Ethan, of everything that you've done, accomplished, and evolved into, what are you the proudest of?
Man, well, from a professional perspective, I'm pretty proud of building out this company now.
Yeah.
I built a lot of other brands and now I'm building my own. And this applied brand science thing, it's happening and it's growing. I'm focusing on the big B brand, I call it, of the reputation and the delivery of what I really offer. And I'm also building the little B brand, which is the logo and the colors, the things that makes the Starbucks brand uh, easy to spot in a food court or an airport or driving down the highway. And so you look for the orange, you see this. I have a lot of orange and white in my company, and I've got this crazy logo, which is a frog with elk antlers.
I love it.
And my charts are all really consistent, and I show data in a really consistent way, and I have a consistent voice. And that's I'm building a brand so much that folks are reaching out. I'm getting international interest in what I do. And then from the big B brand side, I'm delivering and I'm helping companies grow and I'm helping companies understand how to build their own brands. So I'm pretty stoked about that professionally. Personally, I'm pretty stoked I still have friends and family that like me and don't mind me being around.
No
I'm a,
surprise here.
yeah.
No surprise at all. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, Ethan. Family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Uh, well, yeah, I'll steal a line that I once was given from an ex-rugby player from Australia who was a big mucky muck in an ad agency, and he said, "You're a scientist in a clown suit, aren't you?" And it's my terrible Australian accent, and it's not entirely right, but it starts rolling the ball in the right direction.
Yeah.
It's this mashup of performance and improv and creativity and theater, and then the sciencey side of curiosity and being able to analyze things and parse things out.
So we get off the call, time machine pulls up in front of your house. You can go anywhere in the history of jazz and see one show. Where are you going?
Oh Lord, anywhere in the history of jazz and see one show. Um, which show it is, I'm not sure, but I'd love to see Max Roach,
Yeah,
the drummer.
great
Um,
answer.
I went to school with his daughters, uh, Dara and Io, and they were classmates of mine. And he actually came to our school and did a show once. But I'd love to see him like back in his prime with a big band.
That's such a great answer. So if anyone wants to hire you, reach out, look at the plethora of everything that you've done and are doing, how do they do that?
Easiest place is appliedbrandscience.com, has all the junk there. And then the second easiest place is probably on LinkedIn if you search for Ethan Decker. I'm pretty active on there. It's my version of Facebook for geeks.
Yeah.
Those are the two best places to find me.
Okay. Ethan, what a joy. What an absolute pleasure to meet you. I've loved this. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Great to have this conversation, Joe.
Absolutely. So hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.